Well, that's fine. I mean, I see you coming up. Let me see if I hear you now. No, still not. Yeah, but yeah, I see your screen share, but right, exactly, yeah. So let's see. The webcam might be. Let's try to plug in another audio device. Plug in your microphone again. Well, now go back to the ad in your XSplit, and then do devices. There's still no audio. Yep, it is unusual. Yeah, let's do the setting on speaker. That's muting. Click the little icon, the gear icon. Yep, click that. Yep. Let's see what that shows. Microphone, none. Why does it say none? Click where it says none.
Well, that does as much as putting your Tumblr in private.
And that's fine. Let's try that. Let's try that. And then apply. You have to click apply. That's fine. Go down and click OK. Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. I don't see anything. It's still just you. Okay, let me go back here. Default microphone. HD webcam. Let's see how that does. Apply. Where's apply at? None. Where did it? I just pressed it. Oh, here it is down here. Okay, never mind. Okay.
Yep, it's working now.
You can hear me? Hello! No, it isn't working. Can you hear me? It's not working. I'm looking at the thing. It's not bouncing right here.
Yeah, it's working fine.
Okay, well, hey.
No, it's working.
We got to give them an hour, so it's 6:30 now. I hope you're not expected anywhere. Hello, and welcome to another live stream from the only YouTube channel you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And as usual, we'll go ahead and start by reading my latest works that I've been working on all day today. So we're going to be reading from the final part that I did, and we're not going to be reading from where we left off last week, because I'm really proud of this last little piece. I've been losing sleep over trying to figure out how to put this into writing, and until I started writing, nothing was working. And this is from the video script for an upcoming video called Melchizedek, or Melchizedek, however you want to pronounce it. From the time of Adam, very careful records were kept as to who was in line for the inheritance. The chart that I keep referring to, move this up because I don't know how far you can hear me with that microphone. The chart that I keep referring to ends at Jacob, but he is not the final recipient of the inheritance mentioned in the Bible. Each and every one of Jesus' ancestors was over time to be included in the list leading all the way from Adam to Jesus. Many on the list are very prominent characters in the Bible narrative, but there are quite a few listed that we know absolutely nothing about. Christendom teaches that all of the kings of Judah are on the list, but that is probably at least a little bit misleading. Keeping in mind that Canaan was considered to be the son of Ham, even though it is obvious that Canaan was actually the son of Noah, then you should be able to understand that the same could be said of Jesus. Jesus was considered to be the son of Joseph because Jesus was born in the tribe, family, or house of Joseph. But in reality, Jesus was the Son of God. The same could be said of Ishmael. Although we are told that he was the son of Abraham, he was not considered Abraham's son because by tribal law he was recognized as the son of a man named Eliezer. We are not given any details about Eliezer. He is only mentioned in one verse, and the churches have spent thousands of years carefully concealing what that verse is about. At Genesis chapter 15 and verse 2, Abraham says, Lord, what can you give me, since the inheritor of my household is Eliezer of Damascus? Earlier, when Sarah was unable to conceive, she brought a woman named Hagar in order that she might get pregnant, so that their house would have an heir. The child that was born was named Ishmael. If Ishmael was to be the heir, and Abraham told God that Eliezer would inherit his household, the only reasonable explanation would be that Eliezer was the husband of Hagar. It's only the social norms inflicted upon mankind by Satan and his religions that keep us from figuring out these things on our own. We're supposed to believe that our current social order has been put in place by God, even though it is obvious that none of the men who are held up in the Bible as examples followed the same social rules that we are subjected to today. For some reason, many believe that in the ancient past, men were permitted to have multiple sex partners while women were not. It is not reasonable at all to believe that God intended some men to have hundreds of wives and concubines, while many men were expected to simply go without. Eliezer in Hebrew means God's help. If God had thought that Eliezer's act of offering his wife to Abraham was sex was bad, his name would probably be something else. Okay, that was so good to get through that.
It's really loud though too, so we fixed our sound problem.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, so
I guess
looks like we have a belated hellos, but Mishu is coming in the first place, saying hello, Henry, and to everybody. Sleepy Girl 85 says hey hey. Synoptic Problem says howdy. Matt C says hello. R. Hild says good evening. Kitchcool is here. He says hey. Jeremy Phillips says finally I get to make a live stream, and it's the worst live stream to be on.
No, yeah, no lie.
He didn't say that I had.
No, I had to pick the wrong night for this.
Yeah. Super U68 says hello, friend. Karen Bain says good evening, everyone. Joseph Fields says howdy. Merlene Robinson says hey, tuning in from Jamaica. Well, I think she'll like our podcast about Bob Marley.
Oh yeah, that's right. The one we just posted yesterday. Yeah. Did it get up? Is the podcast up?
Yeah, it's up now.
Make sure to listen to the podcast. Sustenance and Covering was featured on a YouTube channel that's about dreadlocks for some reason. And thank you to I can't remember who it was. Several people told me about it, but one person told me about it, and it looks like one person actually mentioned me. That's how I got up on there. Uncle Nesta, he's the one I think that suggested it.
And he's here tonight too, so he's in the chat. He's saying hi, and let's see who else. Dale Rockwell says hey everyone. Tony Lynn says hi y'all. Dale, let's see. Chester Richardson says hello everyone. The Learning Homesteader says good evening everyone, and salute Henry. Jake Green's Model Car Shop says hi, Henry. And Valid M says hi ho, how's everything? And looks like that's it. Oh, Lore Bukar says hi, Henry.
Oh yeah, and, hello.
Yep. Because of all the difficulties, it seems like we don't have a topic yet. So if anybody wants to discuss anything in particular,
one thing. Go ahead.
KNFX 787 says, good evening, everyone. Finally caught the live stream. Better late than never.
Last week you said we got a message from somebody named Skylark Amaris, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to make a big deal about this here, so I'll wait until it's over with and I'll go look them up. I couldn't find them. So if anybody pops in named Skylark Amaris, write down their YouTube name accurately so I can, because they're the ones that said they had a near-death experience and were able to see into people's hearts after that, or can tell who was out to get them. So, I'd like to ask them a few questions about that, if they show up.
Yep, but we don't have a topic yet, so I don't know. Do you want to something about your day? Show us around your house?
Hey, you know what? I could do that. This is like one of the first times. This is like my regular little routine that I do is on Saturday. before we even do, I come in here because I like to stay out on the porch with my other computer, but unfortunately that computer out there is very weak, and it doesn't do the magnificent job that this computer apparently is doing tonight. So anyway, I rarely come in here. When I do, I vacuum everything and I fold everything up, put everything away, and today I just skipped all of it. I've been writing all day, so if I show you a tour of my house, no, I'm not going to. Yeah, I will. There's all my clothes laid out. There's the light, what do you call it, Franken light, and a couple of rifles back there. There's my towel that I had. I always, if I get my hair a little wet when I'm taking a bath, I'll put that towel on this chair so I don't leave a big old wet mark on here for the podcast, or the live stream, I mean. But yeah, everything in here is just, and plus, you know, just fiddling with everything to try to get the sound. I pulled everything out of this computer desk right here, so there's all kinds of gadgets and junk laying out. Look, here's my little
Well, first question tonight comes from Synoptic Problem. He says, Henry, are you familiar with open theism, that God doesn't know the future in its entirety and that God changes his mind and has feelings? If God knew it all, would it negate human free will?
Yeah, we had a thing, it's called fate. That's like, here's how much I believe in fate. Is I wear a seatbelt when I'm in my car. Because if you believe in fate, then what's the point, right? So, but then again, maybe it's fate that I wear a seatbelt. Those kind of things are not found in the Bible. You know, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, there was a very strict belief that fate was not real. But obviously, I mean, like his question there, Synoptic Problem's question, you know, he's not saying, does God not know anything? He's saying, is it possible that God just doesn't know every single detail? And yeah, I don't know how all that works. I'm a man. If Eve was here, you could ask her. You know, she entered into a covenant to be a god, so I never entered the covenant.
Next question comes from DJ Billy Ray. Abraham sent Eliezer to find Isaac's bride.
Yeah, Eliezer.
More of a statement than a question.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Eliezer is not the same. Oh, yeah, is that Eliezer the same guy I was talking about? Let's see here. Because I didn't see his name come up anywhere else. Yeah, it is. Eliezer was the guy he sent after there's two other mentions of Eliezer, but they're in Moses' day, and Abraham was like, what, 400 years before Moses, or something like 400 years before Moses. So, but that makes sense. You know, it was his best friend. You know, if you need to make some kids and your best friend's got a wife he's not using, I guess that would work out.
Well, there's a couple comments about the free will. So All Slaves Dollar Bank says humans don't have free choice. It's an illusion. And Synoptic Problem says fate is the opposite of free will. Yeah,
that's right. Well, you know, even the concept of free will isn't spelled out in the Bible. I mean, we're told about the choices we make, and we're given the opportunity to enter into Satan's covenant or to live by natural law, or at least at one time we were, supposedly. And I like to think that even today, a lot of us, me especially, but a lot of my subscribers are doing everything in their power not to live by the covenants. You know, they don't call the cops every time their neighbor's grass gets too high or whatever. But at the same time, you know, it's just, like I say, it's one of those things where, you know, 6 of one, half dozen the other. Free will or fate? What do you have? Well, here's an example in the Bible of fate. When Paul was on the earth, he was one of the last apostles, and he specifically said, I perceive that we, the apostles, are last in this great theatrical spectacle. Well, I mean, you can sit there and try to explain that away in some way other than what I'm going to tell you, but I believe that Paul recognized that the things that he did were seemingly pre-enactments and reenactments of historic events from the past and historic events from the future. And he felt like he was being manipulated into doing that. So, you know, I don't know what Paul did every second of the day, but the things he wrote about in the Bible were apparently things that he did like without even thinking about it and not even knowing he was doing it. And since he did say specifically he was the last in this great theatrical spectacle, being the last apostle, that would mean someone somewhere had to be first. And since things were recorded in the Bible all the way back to Adam, it's very likely that every person mentioned in the Bible was in some way participating in this great scripted history that we have.
Seems to be a lot more discussion about free will in the chat. There's some people saying that free will is a delusion, and then Laura Bukar says, I disagree with the fact that free will is a self-delusion based on remote viewing data. It is the steering wheel through the space-time continuum.
Pew! I actually, I know what they're saying, and I understand why they want to know. I mean, I want to know too. I mean, I would say this. Every day I wake up, it's a struggle to figure out how I'm supposed to go, what the next step in this thing is. Just like the book. I'm writing a book, and I swear to myself, I am not going to stop writing the book until I'm done writing the book. Then I'll go make videos. And the next day I'll wake up and I think, oh my God, I got to make a video. And so I'm working on Melchizedek when the original intention was to write a book about the Bible code, and even that's changed now. When I get back to the book, it's going to be basically what's the Bible all about. It's not going to be just the code, the 360 days and the 30-day months and the 7-year cycles, 49-year cycles, 1,000-year cycles. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm part of the great theatrical spectacle. No, actually, Paul was the last, so nobody after that's supposed to be part of it.
Well, let's see.
It'd be great to just throw my hands up and let somebody else do all of this, or let it happen. Just let it happen, because it's really a lot of work.
Well, Great Bay says, if you have a brain, you have free will. And Mike Seff says, God's will and God's permissive will. And then Synoptic Problem brings up the idea, do you think that God changes his mind ever?
That's been played out several times in the Bible. He says, I'm going to go destroy Sodom. And so Abraham says, well, wait a second. What if there's 50 good people in Sodom? Would you destroy it then? He goes, no, I guess not. Well, what if there were 20 people? Would you destroy it then? No, I guess not. I guess I could save Sodom if there was 20 good people in there. Say, all right, well, what about 10? He keeps whittling them down, and then finally he goes into Sodom. He doesn't find anybody good. I mean, when you look at it, he brings Lot out. That was already determined. I don't think that Lot was part of that deal. He was going to go into Sodom and get Lot and his family, and then all the good people that were, Lot's friends. And then when it was over with, I mean, he didn't even get his daughter, his son-in-laws out. He didn't get Lot's wife out. And basically, all he got out was Lot and his 2 daughters. It's like that. Those 3 are such important characters to the story that Abraham didn't change anything. If Abraham hadn't said a thing, God would have got Lot and his 2 daughters out. So, but I think there's several other places where God is, given a deal. Even the king of Israel, he told them, don't ever have a king, and Israel just kept pouting and stomping their feet and slamming doors and stuff, and he said, okay, y'all can have a king now. But I think that was already figured out. He knew that was going to happen. I mean, look at how people act. They get passionate over which champion they're going to send to try to defeat God next.
And then Super U68 says, I'm sure our free will offers others to put roadblocks. We have the ability to change our minds at the drop of a diamond, and we often do. What about roadblocks? Are we forced into certain choices?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about, obviously, certain choices, yes. All choices, I don't know. I mean, my choice is to not drive anymore. But my stomach says I got to have food. Not only that, but it's like everything I get, it's through some kind of, I got to go pay my taxes, got to go fill out paperwork at the bank, at the post office, and all. There's just all kinds of Medicaid. You know, I got to go to the VA all the time and fill out junk. So, you know, I don't really have a choice, I don't think. Maybe if I quit doing all that stuff, manna would fall out of heaven. I don't know. I doubt it.
Back to the idea of Eleazar and Abraham. So DJ Billy Ray says Eleazar was Abraham's servant who chose not to be freed, so he became as if he was a son. And then Matt Wilcox says why was Ishmael sent away rather than back to Eleazar, his stepfather.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, and I don't know that he wasn't. You know, the story says that Ishmael and his mama were out there, and she's like saying, "Please, just let me die." You know, I don't, nothing. And somebody, I guess, she was miraculously taken care of, but it doesn't specifically say that Eleazar wasn't there. I don't think. But at the same time, you know, when she was thrown out of the tribe for whatever reason, you know, I mean, Ishmael was thrown out of the tribe. Maybe Eleazar just didn't want to go. I don't know. You know, the Bible doesn't have all of the answers, but I do know that, like where it says that Eleazar was Abraham's servant, that word is actually like it was the word. There is no word servant in the Bible. Like it's not in the Old Testament. It talks about slaves, and we look at slaves like people that are kidnapped and chained up and forced to pick cotton. And that's not really what they were. It was like this tribe went into the promised land, and it was basically all the sons of Eber. In general, it was all the sons of Eber. That's where the word Hebrew comes from, is Eber. You know, Hebrew is, the Hebrew word for Hebrew is Eber. And one of the things about it is that Eleazar was from Assyria, and Hagar was from Egypt. And it calls them slaves, but what it really says in Hebrew is that it was an Egyptian family member and an Assyrian family member of Abraham. How that works, I don't know. And not only that, but Eleazar is like, his name is not even in Hebrew. It's a different language. And same thing with Hagar. I think Hagar, her name means flight, but it doesn't mean flight in Hebrew. It means flight in Egyptian. That's a big hint. Like if you're reading about somebody, if you want to find out where they came from, you see what language their name is in. If their name is in Hebrew, they're Hebrews. If their name is in Egyptian, they're Egyptians. Well, you know, there is an exception to that. When Abram went into the promised land, his name was Abram, which means great father. But it means great father in Hebrew. Ab-Ram. Ab, it's father. Ram is great. And when he finally defeats this army, and he goes into the promised land, then he goes into Egypt, and he goes back to the promised land, God takes him aside and says, I'm going to go ahead and change your name from Abram to the name of Abraham, because I'm going to make you a father of many nations. So we know that his first name Ab, or first part of his name Ab, means father, but Raham, that's not a Hebrew word. But we know that it means of a population, because it sounds like somewhat like the Hebrew word for population, but it also sounds somewhat like word for population that's in the Assyrian, and you know, all of the surrounding nations had a bunch of different languages, and it's kind of just a lot of languages use that Raham as population. So when Abraham was given his second name, it's almost like God was telling him, you're going to be of many nations, so I'm going to make your name of multiple languages. Can't stump me. I'm sustenance and covering.
Okay, Nick.
I know everything.
Next question comes from Bleed M. He says, was it 42 generations until Jesus? Does it show up other places in the Bible, the number 42? And I'm just going to add in here that the number 42 is the answer to everything, as according to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's like 6 times 7 is 42. 3 times 14. 3 times 7 times 2. I don't know. It can't. You know, it can't actually be. There can't be an absolute. I've heard people say an absolute number, Can't really be, because if you look at his genealogies, there's some discrepancies there. Like the genealogy of Mary does not match the genealogy of Joseph. And that's okay, because they weren't the same person. Two different people would have two different genealogies. But the weird thing is, it's like we have the genealogy of Adam to Noah, and then we have a separate genealogy, which is Shem to, or Noah to Abraham, and then you've got to kind of dig for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But from Adam to Noah, there's an extra guy in there somewhere. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, I don't want to stumble anybody's faith, because the Bible's not supposed to contradict itself. But I suspect that this extra guy has something to do with the same thing. Just like Noah got his daughter-in-law pregnant, and so that child was the son of Ham, even though he's really the son of Noah. And then Ishmael was the son of Abraham, but he was considered the son of, oh, what did I just say his name was? Frank. Eleazar. And then there's also Jesus, who is the son of Joseph, but the reality is he's the son of God. And I think that probably this other guy that's like he doesn't belong there is probably a similar situation. Because even Lot, when Abraham left when he left Ur, the city of Ur, he left his brother Nahor in Ur, and he just left with his dad Terah and his grandfather, which is also named Nahor, and he had Lot with him. So why would he take his nephew with him? Why didn't his nephew stay with his father? And I think a lot of religions say that Lot was taken with Abraham because Lot's father had died, but that may not be true. It may be that Abraham was another one of them kids. Or Lot was another one of them kids. Abraham was his father, but he was considered the son of Nahor because he lived in Nahor's house. That when Nahor and Abraham picked wives, they picked sisters. They were brothers, and they picked sisters. So it was basically two brothers and two sisters of the same family. And in that, too, is another one of those things where Abraham's father, Terah, had actually had a child by his wife, but he had also had a child by another tribal member's wife. Sounds like fun, doesn't it?
I'm not sure what that has. What does that have to do with 42?
Because the numbers won't be the same no matter how you go. It's like the number of people between Mary and Adam is going to be different than the number of people between Joseph and Adam, and then on top of that, you've got this separate line of descent from Adam coming down that doesn't include Mary or Joseph, and it's not going to be the same. So I don't know how they get that. I like reading that stuff. They've got a video that's one of my favorite videos, and it's the name of everybody from Adam to Jesus. Yet translate it, because it tells a story, and it's kind of cool.
Well, Mike F says 42 is dominoes. Not sure what that is, but okay.
Yeah, that's like yeah.
Next question.
Because 7, 6.
From Matt's dominoes. Oh. Okay. Next question comes from Matt C. What are your thoughts on the pineal gland? There is another guy I watch on YouTube. He thinks the land of milk and honey is in your mind and your spinal fluids. DMT and melanin both are sacred secretions. I don't believe in it.
There's a lot of stuff I think about in the Bible that may or may not be true, but I think almost every verse in the Bible has something to do with celestial phenomenon. So it's like when you read about the great river Euphrates and Tigris of Babylon, which is apparently Noah's Ark came to rest there. I think it may have been constructed on the Temple Mount, but when it came to rest, it may have been in Babylon. The reason I believe that is because that's where all the first people ended up after the flood, and then they fled to go back into the Promised Land and then on into Egypt. But it's like when you read about the Tigris and Euphrates, it's almost like you're reading about the Milky Way. And then, because when you go back into the stories about the Garden of Eden, they had a Tigris and a Euphrates in there too, but those are not the same Tigris and Euphrates because they go into two other rivers that no longer exist. Also, it's possible that all of the rivers that are mentioned there before the flood are what we now call the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, things like that. And but when you get down, you know, there's also verses that say, as above, so below. So you look up at the sky, and there's a sun, and there's planets going around the sun, and then there's moons going around the planets. Well, if science are telling the truth, then that's the way our bodies work. Like you have cells, and the cells are made up of elements. The elements are made up of atoms and electrons, neutrons, protons. And I've heard a lot of stuff about, you know, our blood cells and how they relate to the Bible, and then that's when you get into these things where you have to depend on your own interpretation or some YouTube videos interpretation, and then you got to believe that all the junk that they're saying about science is true. Then that's just, I don't even want to speculate. That's too far out, you know, out in the field. Now, what the pineal gland does, it's the same thing. You know, if I've read a lot of stuff about it. It seems to me like it was some kind of communication. It's part of our body for communication, which may have stopped working at Babel when the languages were confused. But who knows? You know, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't even know that I even really have kidneys or a liver or anything. You know, I saw all that stuff on TV, and they taught it in science class, or biology class, but. And I have opened up animals, you know, butchering animals and seen that stuff. But what all that does and all, you know, just in the brain, that's not even like a stomach. You know, you can at least cut a stomach open and see rice and beans in there. You cut a brain open, it's like jelly.
Yep. And okay, so a couple new people came in. Great Bay 1961 says good evening all, and Rick Baylord says better late than not having made it. Howdy everyone.
Skylark Amara never came on, huh? Or Skylark Amaris? Nope.
I haven't seen them.
Well, if you're there, if you're listening, let me know after this is over with, go post a comment on video so I can get in touch with you. I just want to ask you some questions.
There is one comment that the volume is too loud now.
For me? Is it my volume?
Yeah, maybe move your mic down a little bit farther, or put it under your beard.
Yeah, that's where I like to put it, because then you can see. Well, you still can't see me. You see all this gray fuzz. Hello?
Next question comes from Great Bay 1961. If humans live to be 800 to 900 years old, and now we are lucky to make it to 75 years old, are we really going extinct?
No, I think that's all part of the plan somehow. You know, and the reason I'm saying that is I just posted a chart. For anybody that hasn't been to the website, you need to go there. The website, I've recently posted a chart of all of the people who in the Bible were listed as being in line for what's called the promise. And it starts with Adam, goes on to his son, and then his son, his son, his son, his son. And as you're going through that list, wait a second, what was the question again? I know I'm messing you up, but I start talking, I forget what I'm supposed to be saying.
Are we going because we're dropping in age?
Here's the thing, is like, it seemed to me for years that before the flood people lived a long time, and then after the flood people lived a short time, and after reading the Bible a few times, it seems that going back on that list, which is on the website, that the guy at the very beginning lived the longest, and then they eventually got gradually shorter. That's not necessarily the case. It looks to me like, and this will come out in the Melchizedek video, that everyone who lived before the flood died off right before the flood. So Adam was 900 and something years old, but the next guy, like Lamech, Noah's father, was only 777. And so it's almost like they were being killed off so that they wouldn't be killed in the flood. After the flood, you've got Noah, who's, I think he was 600 years old when the flood came. But he still lived a long time after that. He lived all the way up into Abraham's day. Shem lived way past Abraham. And if you go back on the website and you look at all the lists, it's like once Abraham had Isaac, suddenly all of the patriarchs died. His father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather, all of them, all the way back to Noah, died within like 100 years of one another. So it wasn't really so much that humans were getting sicker and sicker and sicker. That's not the pattern. The pattern is that everybody stayed alive like they're going to live forever, and then right before the flood, they all died. Same thing with after the flood. It looked like everybody was going to live forever, and then when Abraham entered the promised land, they all died. So there's something else going on there other than just natural, like an increase in radiation, pollution, decrease in the quality of food, that kind of stuff.
Okay, next question comes from Synoptic Problem. He says, if our human nature is to sin, why does God hold us accountable for sinning? We don't punish nursing babies for being hungry and wanting to nurse. So if God knew that humanity would fall and he would have to send his son to die for our sins, and that the majority of people wouldn't believe, why did he create humanity in the first place?
If you look at it, see, the God of religion, not the creator. The God of religion is a God of punishment and reward, because the God of religion is Satan. Satan wants you to engage in civilization. He wants you to wear the right amount of clothes. He wants you to do the right amount of work, say the right words, participate in rituals, all that foolishness. And people don't want to do that. So it's like, if you don't do that, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to send you to hell, that kind of stuff. But if you read the Bible wasn't written by the God of religion. It was written by the Creator and those who support the Creator. And it's not a book of how to get to heaven. It's a book, it's just a simple recording or written record of the war between God's kingdom and Satan's empire, also known as the war between creation and civilization. These are at odds with one another. And if you go back and look to it, it's not really saying, if you have sex, I will put you in the eternal fires of hell. A lot of the stuff that's in there is just practical information. You know, when he told Peter, those who live by the sword die by the sword, he wasn't like, I'm going to poke a sword in you if you do that. It wasn't like that. It was just common sense, you know. Like when he told, Jesus said, you know, it was asked, should I pay the taxes? Jesus said, well, whose picture's on the coin? He didn't say one way or another. He said, whose picture's on the coin? Is it Caesar? It's his. Why would you ask me that question? Ask Caesar whether or not you should pay tax. But he also made a point of telling you, if you don't pay taxes, these guys got swords. You know, it's just like in our day. The world is filling up with patriots ready to take over the world and make it a better place. But you go out there with your AK-47s and your 9mm pistols against a fast-to-track stealth nuclear drone, you're going to lose. You know, the Bible's full of information like that. Don't shoot a gun at somebody with a nuclear bomb. Of course, it doesn't have that in it, but, you know, it's got a lot of common sense stuff, you know. Don't punch somebody in the nose if they got a sword. I mean, it really is. When you read all this stuff about the wicked shall be thrown into the lake of fire or something like that. All of that, if you really break it down into its original languages of Greek and Hebrew, it's almost all, this is where you're going to end up if you don't stop. It's going to be on you. It's not going to be on me. I don't have a place where I torture people, but you're going to end up suffering if you do bad things.
One more hello comes in from a chain of hills saying, hey, sus and all. Got in late. I'll rewatch. Just wanted to say have a good week. Kitch Cool asked the next question. Says, do you think towards or in the last days that angels and the Holy Spirit will play a part in directing us? Yeah. As it did with the apostles after Jesus' death? Just a random thought.
Yeah, I think, but you know, here's the thing is like, people think we're in the last days now because of wars and earthquakes and famines, pestilence, all that stuff. The last days is a 1,260-day period. I really believe all those verses about miraculous stuff, about people regaining the ability to speak the human language, the ability to heal people, the ability to talk to angels, because it says that in the last days, old men will have dreams, and the young men will see visions, and the women will prophesy. I don't think that's leading up to these last days that we all think we're in. I think when the sun and the moon go back into conjunction and the solar system starts working again and the extinct species of animals come back, we'll have a 1,260-day period when we'll start doing some of this magic, stuff that's not normal now.
Uncle Nesta comes up with the next question. He says, I believe my aunt has a religious spirit lying to her. What do you think I should do about it? I'm going to pray hard about this, but I'd like to know what else I should do in your opinion.
I don't want to take away your hope. Keep praying. But I'll tell you this. I live in a family. I have a family too. And it's not just an aunt. I'm talking about, people close to me. Brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, wives. And I've got 30 years of praying for these people. And I've even gotten to the point where I'm just like, okay, I got to lay my hands on this person and cast just out that demon. And we're just not living at that time. I think when that 1,260-day cycle comes, I'll be able to tell the demons to get out of my folks, get out of my family, and they'll leave, maybe. But for right now, only people like Oral Roberts can do that stuff. Archduke or Archpatriarch of Constantinople, the Pope, them guys. For us, we just have to endure it. Don't stop loving them. I love my family. It's just very, very stressful to hear them being, believing in things that are irrational, and they don't want to be reasoned with. They want that. They want that imaginary world that religion gives them for some reason.
A couple comments. Mountain Truth says, dang, I missed it. Hope Mr. Thoreau will forgive. Also from Lower Bukar says, sustenance. Thank you for all these years of wisdom and being an example that a good person like yourself can hang in there and give so many people hope. I will start my own channel soon, my friend. Thank you for the courage and inspiration.
He's at like 2 a.m. where he's at too. He's like in Kitchicool's part of the world. It's middle of the night for him.
Next question comes from DJ Billy Ray. Have you ever noticed that Isaac was the only Hebrew who was never allowed to leave Israel? He was the Melchizedek.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Here's the deal. You're going to find out. You're going to find out you're right. You're also going to find out you're wrong. But you're right. Because, okay, when Abraham went in, Melchizedek, Melchizedek, that means the rightful king. We're told it means king of righteousness. That's a mistranslation. It's Melchizedek was the rightful king. Well, who was the rightful king when Abraham was born? It was Noah. Noah was still alive. I mean, he's the father of everybody on the earth. Obviously, he was rightful king. But it never made a big deal about that in his lifetime, because the fight over who was the rightful king didn't start until he died. When he died, the whole world went to pieces because everybody wanted his position. And in fact, it seems as if maybe when the war started that Noah was still alive, and that might be what killed him, is he just maybe died of a broken heart, or maybe God killed him, or maybe he was killed in the war itself. But when he died, the Melchizedek would have been the next person in the line for the inheritance, and we're given a very clear line. It's like at such and such age, Shem was born. Well, Shem was alive for years. And when Abraham died, Shem was still alive. If you know how the churches fight over whether or not Abraham ever received the inheritance, he didn't. Abraham never received the inheritance because the entire time he was in the promised land, the inheritance belonged to his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Shem. But when Abraham died, right after Abraham died, Shem died, and then Abraham's great-great-grandfather Eber died, and then Isaac inherited the promise. So basically, the Melchizedek of Abraham's day was Shem, and then for a short time it was Eber. But when Eber died, all of the patriarchs had died. Like I was saying earlier about how all of those guys died about the same time, is that once Eber died, you didn't have any more 600, 700, 800-year-old people. The oldest man in line for the inheritance at the time was Isaac. Isaac was only like 100 years old when he inherited the promise. And then, not long after that, he died. And Jacob inherited the promise. Not long after that, Jacob died. And the kingdom was, 12 sons. And they were all basically run off into Egypt. But yeah, Isaac was the first Melchizedek after after Eber died. He was the first rightful king that was in that line from Abraham. But then see, as time went on, who was next? It was Jesse. And then when Jesse came, it was David. And then when David came, it was, actually the line of David is, most people don't know this, you'll find out in the Melchizedek video, but the last Melchizedek, the last one in that line where the line ended was Jesus. Because, we don't know if Jesus had any kids. It doesn't say in the Bible he did or he didn't. And there are people that will, fundamentalist Christians will tell you Jesus didn't even have genitals. But, the people that are kind of like conspiracy theorists say that, he had a kid and the kid got out and that's where all the royalty comes from today or something like that. Yeah, obviously, if it was important, it would be in the Bible. It's not in the Bible, and it says very clearly that Christ, this is like from Galatians, Paul said, the seed is not the nation of Israel. When God made the promise of Abraham's seed, he was not talking about seeds, plural. He was talking about seed, singular. And it says very clearly that seed, for us, it even says it, for us, that seed is Christ. So whatever kids may have come down that line to our day doesn't make a difference. That's the one. Jesus is the one.
DJ Billy Ray makes a comment that Shem was the Melchizedek who Abraham met.
Yeah, I think that even the Jews believe that. Because I saw something one time, I was like, wow, I've discovered something no one else knows. Shem was Melchizedek. So I just typed in Shem was Melchizedek, and about 5 or 6 Messianic Jew pages came up and said, Shem is Melchizedek. I thought, they beat me to the punch.
Let's see. Laur Bukhar says they're in Dublin, Ireland, and it's okay there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He is.
Next question.
He had to go home for, he's back and forth. He's like a world traveler. He's all over the planet. He'll say he isn't, but he is.
Next question comes from Mike Seff. The saying appears in the Latin Bible in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, verse 52. An unnamed follower of Jesus draws his sword and cuts off the ear of a servant of the high priest. Not sure if this is a comment or a question.
I just said that Peter is the one that did it. But I think, honestly, I do believe that there's like, in one of the Gospels, it leaves him unnamed, and in another Gospel it doesn't. But it's possible that the Latin version of the Bible leaves him unnamed. I don't know. But it does say very clearly in my Bible, at least in one of the books, that the person who actually cut off, it was what was this guy's name? It was like Malchus. This guy, that's a cop. He was a policeman, and he came out to arrest Jesus. He was with these suit-wearing clowns, the Pharisees or whatever. Temple guard. He was a temple guard, basically just a cop. And so Peter cut his ear off, and Jesus picked the ear up and put it back on the guy. And he says, those who live by the sword die by the sword. And apparently the soldiers thought, well, this guy just put Malchus's ear back on. We're just let Peter go. Let's don't even start anything here. We're here to arrest Jesus. Let's just leave it at that. How would you be if you were a cop and somebody cut your ear off while you're trying to arrest a man, and the man who you're arresting put your ear back on? Yeah, I think that's his name, Malchus. It was Peter that did the cut, and Malchus got cut.
And Mike Sepp wants to see if you could comment a little bit more about the phrase "live and die by the sword."
Well, somebody, when I first started this show, they had a radio show called God and Guns. And it was actual radio. It wasn't internet radio. It was actual radio. And they contacted me and they wanted me to go on their show. And I think I did it three different times. And their whole point was that as Christians, we should be armed and ready to rise up against the wicked. You and I have talked about this. Take a stand against the government. And I was always having to say, well, look, I'm not going to take a stand against somebody that's better armed than me. I mean, even a little girl could beat me up. So if I drop my gun, I'm in trouble. So, but anyways, that was his thing. And I said, look, there is nothing in the Bible saying not to arm yourself. But, I mean, really, would you like to get through life without shooting somebody? And, I'm not just going to lay down if a criminal comes in here. You do what you can, and you don't know in advance what you're going to do until that comes up. But, if any of my guns will still shoot and somebody breaks my door down, I'll shoot them. I had a hawk got one of my baby chicks a while back, and I was so mad. And I was sitting on my porch one day, and that hawk just came along, and he landed on a tree. And he was sitting on this limb. I was right in front of me, and I snuck into the house. And I got my gun, and I went out there, click, click. That thing wouldn't shoot for nothing. So I come back in, I got another gun. It wouldn't even make a click noise. And I wasn't going to try to shoot that thing with a pistol, so I don't even know if my pistol will shoot. Okay, well, that was a cute story. I hope people enjoyed that. That's as much as I can elaborate on the guns. If you're a Christian and you want to defend yourself, there's nothing in the Bible says you can't. Certainly you would hope you never had to.
Well, DJ Billy Ray says that if you live by your words, you die by your words. Your words are equivalent to swords. Jesus was a sword coming from his mouth. It means his words will cut you.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of mistranslation in the Bible, and I know most people don't know it. But there's a word in Greek, not in Hebrew, but in Greek, and it means cutting edge, or it means teeth. And so when it says that there's a sword coming out of Jesus' mouth, what it actually says, it doesn't say that the sword is coming out of Jesus' mouth. It says Jesus has a sword with two mouths. That's just how that was how they said a double-edged sword, because that same phrase appears in several other places in the Bible that the sword had two mouths, and it doesn't translate it as the man had a sword coming out of his mouth. But when you get to Revelation, we're hearing about Jesus, it said Jesus has a sword with two mouths, and it says, and the rider of the horse has a sword coming out of his mouth. And that's not, I hope I didn't bust somebody's bubble, but when I was doing the research for it, I wasn't even doing research about that. I had found another word, and I don't remember, Egyptian or Phoenician word or in Spanish. It was a Spanish word, and I thought, well, that doesn't look right. But it was, how machetes, a machete that you cut vines with, like in the Tarzan movies or something. That's actually, in Spanish, I think it's like macheta. And it's the same word in Greek, macheta. And if you look at the swords, whenever they find some buried soldier, Roman soldier, it says he has a sword, he's really got a machete. It's the same, it looks just like a machete, and that's where the word machete comes from. But if you look in the book of Revelation, it's something that's like the machete with two mouths or two edges.
Atari Santos says, what about the sword standing for the Spirit? Is that completely out of context, considering that Jesus is about to die?
Nothing has really two meanings in the Bible, but there are a lot of hidden things that are in the words, incorporated in the words, and I don't want to say because I don't know. Yeah, because there is that thing that says a sword would pierce even to the bones in their marrow. I did a little research on that before, and it's almost talking about splitting blood from marrow, and it's, blood comes from marrow, I guess. That's what scientists say or biologists say. And so there is a lot going on there that's not like scripturally accurate, but it's powerful. And since I haven't done enough research on it to make a statement, or at least I don't remember what I read about that, but yeah, that's a pretty radical comment. It could split. It's talking about separating a soul from its spirit, which is like, you can't do that. A soul is a spirit, right? But a soul is a life, a person. We're souls, That's why when a ship sinks, they say it went down with 20 souls or whatever. It's 20 people. But it says that God's sword is going to separate spirit from souls, but it's also going to split bones from marrow. And it's almost like it's saying it's not something that's possible, but God can do it.
Matt Wilcox makes a comment that Spada Anca evolved into machete.
Was he Spanish? Or Greek? Spadancha.
Yeah, maybe Latin, maybe.
Yeah, was Spadancha? He said Spadancha?
No, Espada.
Espada Ancha. Hey, you got me. You got me. I only know 300 languages fluently. The others I only partway know.
DJ Billy Ray says, you want to see people live by the sword, die by the sword? Just look at all the people attacking people for sexual harassment and them being accused themselves.
Hey, this is the thing. This is my thing about it. Okay, you've got billionaires out there that are raping people, and in exchange they're getting $1 million jobs, right? Who cares? I can guarantee you tonight, a dozen little girls are having sex to get a job stacking groceries at a grocery store. Who am I? Am I going to pout for somebody that gets rich off of sex, or somebody that they're going to get to live? They get to have food if they have sex. This is a screwed up world, man. I'm going to complain. I got $1 million show, and I'm going to complain because I had to touch some man's naked booty or whatever the heck they did. A fat guy. I'll touch it. I'll touch a fat guy's butt if I can get enough money for it.
Yeah, let's not go there. Okay, Kitch Cool just wants to say a shout out to anybody else that is listening that might be in Manchester. Maybe send a comment his way so you guys can connect up.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And then he does come up with a comment, so a question. He says, okay, another random thought, and you've probably explained this before, just something my brother said, and it throws me. It says those exercising faith in Jesus Christ will be saved.
Not only that, but those that don't exercise faith in Jesus will be saved. And it's like in the Bible, it says that Jesus paid the sacrifice for all of us. Now, I mean, when we get into the end times and we start seeing how the mechanics of that works out, okay, obviously there is a reward for those of us who are willing to walk away from civilization and follow Jesus into paradise. That's where he promised. He promised the man dying next to him, I'll see you in paradise. But there's also going to be a resurrection of the wicked. The resurrection of the righteous, resurrection of the wicked. That's Acts. I don't even want to guess. But anyways, I think it's 2:14. But there's also a second death and a second resurrection, which is obviously different than that first one. So there is a reward for being in a part of the first resurrection. And there is a reward for not experiencing the second death. But when Jesus died, that resurrection is out for everybody. Now, how people react when they're, you think about it, if wicked people live their whole life thinking that they're doing wonderful things because they're the plant manager, at the bomb factory, they may wake up in a beautiful paradise forest surrounded by people they love and think, we've got to cut some of these trees down because the bomb factory won't fit in here. Those guys are gonna, hopefully nobody will be that stupid, but I don't know the future. I know what I want, I know what the Bible promises, and I think currently everybody gets it. Everybody gets a Bible promise. What you do with it after you get it may be the issue.
Just a couple comments, Matt C. And Mountain Truth seemed to like you. You go in where you did, but I'm not sure if with the whole touching butts and stuff.
Well, just so you know, in case you're interested, I'm married to a woman.
Next question, and I think this is going to be our last one, and then you can finish up after this. Synoptic Problem says, what do you think of those that say that life is best lived if you, quote, die before you die, end quote?
Could we finish up with a
Go ahead
different
and take it out
question? No, don't ask me another question. I don't know the answer to this one. All I can say is if you don't want to survive.
Oh, you know that one?
Yeah. Read it to me one more time. Maybe I'm not paying attention or something. What about the people that say if you
has to do with the phrase die before you die? Have you ever heard that phrase before?
Never heard the
People
phrase.
should die before they die.
I don't know, scripturally.
Yeah,
scripturally. I think he's talking about those who die to their sins, or people who die to their lust, that kind of stuff. And there are verses in the Bible that are kind of like that, that say you should die while you're here. Die to your old way of life. Is there no other questions?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, Simple Sister Living, she commented that what you were referring to with touch and button stuff was with like examples of like Ashley Judd, who benefited from getting touched and everything.
Hey, look, if I was Ashley Judd, the sustenance and covering would be a lot easier. I'd have like a dozen people working here, editing my video for me, so I would even like dictate to them. I wouldn't even be typing all this stuff out. It'd be like, put it in your own words. When you get it right, send it my way.
Okay, so Synoptic Problem rephrased it. What it means is live each day as if it was your last. So any comments about that, and then go ahead and take us out.
Very good advice, because on the day you're born, you are living your last day. When Adam was told, if you eat from this fruit, you will die, in that very day you will die, he was serious. In that very day, Adam died. He didn't die during that 24 hours. But this little bit of time we're spending here before the resurrection could easily be considered a day. I hope everybody enjoyed the live stream. And as always, if you do not want to survive